Nation.
Raging Review.
The Raging Cajuns will be a source of pride for this university, for the alumni, fans, and donors as we achieve success in the classroom, in the competitive arena, and in the community.
It's about to get really fun.
We're looking for dudes that will stand up. Well, Coach, let me tell you today, I'm here and I'm ready to stand up. And I challenge you, Raging Cajun Nation, to stand up with us. Stand up with us. Let's lock hand in hand and let's walk through the gates of Omaha.
Hey, I love y'all boys. Let's grind every day starting today. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Alert! Ready? Who's that team ready? Who's that team ready? That's up.
I got one thing to say right here. Cajuns win!
Ladies and gentlemen, children, babies, Cajun Nation, good evening. I'm Jerry. That's Nick. And we have one guy missing tonight, our buddy Josh, a.k.a. Man About Town. He's a little under the weather, so he'll be taking the night off. So wish me luck. I'll be steering this train as we talk about a game week against the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. We'll review a little bit about Arkansas State first. But 5-day week, quick turnaround, lots to talk about tonight. We also have our guests from Southern Miss Everyday Eagles podcast. We have Mr. Chuck McRaney and Mr. Lane Brady that will be joining us in a few minutes to discuss this game on Thursday. As I call it, rivalry renewed. It's good to have the Golden Eagles in the Sun Belt Conference with us. But first, let me introduce you, Mr. Nick Domang. How are you, sir?
What's happening, G? Look, man, I think today snuck up on all of us, you know, with Josh being on injured reserve this week, with a short week for us, with everything going on. I think this one was kind of put together at last minute. So we're probably going to have some kinks this episode, but you know what? It comes with the territory. We can't be perfect every week, right?
No, it can't be perfect every week, and it's nothing. There's nothing wrong with a crash course every once in a while, right? So that's what we'll do. So everybody, just bear with me here. I'm going to try to steer this thing into the right direction. But let's get started. We've had a long talk the other night about the Arkansas State win. Cajuns took care of business, won their second straight game. Went back to 500 in conference, 4-3 overall. Big victory at Cajun Field this past Saturday, 38-18 over the Red Wolves. And, I think this was the time where we're starting to see the team click and really click at the right time. Ben Woldridge, unbelievable game, 21 of 34. I believe he threw for over 300 yards, 5 TDs, no interceptions. We had 4 of our running backs got 11 to 12 touches, 4 to 5 yards a carry, 206 yards on the ground. Receiving core created separation. Defense made some big key stops. Just talk a little. What did you think about the game Saturday, Nick? Like I said, I know we talked about it, but just to kind of put some closure to Arkansas State, I would say it's a pretty good setup for Thursday night. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Overall, it was just execution. It was execution by the coaching staff. Obviously, Ben had an outstanding game. I think received some much praise from the Sun Belt Conference and others around the country for his 5-touchdown game. I think his QB rating was like 186. It was stupid. Really, offensive line started to grow up a little bit. I think the last couple of games really showed versus Arkansas State. And I think it was a game that we needed going into Southern Miss, because we're going into Southern Miss where they have momentum. They've got a home game. I'm sure they're going to have a rowdy crowd. We're going to talk a little bit about them having off. I think they're canceling classes on Thursday, which is unbelievably awesome by the university supporting their football team that much. But I think that's a testament to coming into the Sun Belt, wanting to be here and getting some national attention. They're not playing on gas station TV anymore. They're actually playing on ESPN2, and it's, people, there will be eyes on the game. So I think that's exciting for them, exciting for us. but we needed a good, solid performance going into that game. And I think it showed a lot about, again, the improvement through the season, the maturity at the quarterback position, the maturity of the offensive line. And what can we say more about our defense that is just rocking it so far this season, and they continue to dominate. So we'll talk stats. We'll talk about the game next week. But overall, a great start to what I think is going to be hopefully a very exciting and happy end of the season, or should I say second half of the season.
Yeah, and Coach Desimo alluded to it a few times. He did say we are getting better. He did say that he hopes that this team, he knows what this team is capable of. And he also said that by the end of the season, he hopes we can look back and enjoy what we were able to accomplish by the end of the year, which means at this point, that would mean we would have to make a run moving forward. And I think this team is ripe for it. To be honest with you, I think we're catching Southern Miss at a very crucial time because, look, the Golden Eagles are on a roll too. 2 straight wins, 2 come from behind wins, 1 on the road, 1 against Arkansas State. Will Hall's doing a fantastic job over there. As we know Coach Hall because he coached here for a year. He's got good experience, and he's, we'll talk with our friends from Everyday Eagles in a second, but he's somebody I think that can kind of bring Southern Miss back to that stature that they've known for so long. And so I think going into this game, we needed these last 2 games going into Southern Miss, especially with the short week, because we needed all the momentum we could get going to Hattiesburg. It's a road game. They're having a blackout. There's going to be a lot of people in the stands. And so I think that Arkansas State game solidified what we've been capable of all year. And we played really good ball all 3 phases of the game. And so, I just figured we put an end to that. Again, Cajuns victorious over the Arkansas State Red Wolves 38-18. Again, 4-3 overall, 2-2 in conference. But now we look forward to Southern Miss on Thursday night, ESPN 2, 6:30 Central Standard Time kickoff. Should be a lot of fun. So with that being said, we'd like to introduce you to Everyday Eagles podcast, fan podcast of Southern Miss. Here we have Chuck and Lane joining us tonight. Chuck, Lane, what's going on, guys? Thanks for joining us.
What's up, guys?
What's up? We're glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
No, thank y'all for coming on. Lane, you had reached out to us, I believe, over the summer. Right before, I don't know if it was before or after USM officially joined the Sun Belt. I want to start off by asking you guys now, Southern Miss has been through trials and tribulations when it comes to conference realignment. It's safe to say that, you were in the Metro, you were an independent, you were in the Metro Conference back in the 80s in basketball. You joined Conference USA when it started, and you had a few teams that moved on. And I know I remember reading an article about, was it 5-10 years ago, about Southern Miss kind of missing the conference realignment talk, but I think it all came full circle. You're in the Sun Belt Conference now. You've joined a conference. I mean, we were in a conference. This was a conference 10 years ago that a lot of people, schools or fans wanted to leave. And now when we have schools like Southern Miss, Marshall, JMU, and ODU wanting to be here, it means a lot to us, and it adds value to what our conference is about. Just talk a little bit about being members of the Sun Belt now, and what the fans, what was the fan reaction to that, as well as your departure from Conference USA?
I'll let Chuck go first here.
Well, I'm going to say that we are super excited to be part of the Sun Belt Conference. I think what we've been missing, I think you said it earlier, Gary, where you said, or is it Jerry?
It's Jerry, but he's
Jerry. Yeah. Okay. So Jerry, you said earlier, rivalry renewed, and that's a huge thing because there are so many schools that are within driving distance in the Sun Belt. When we used to play UTEP and FAU and FIU, and they were plane rides away. Now they're car rides away. So we are excited to have rivalries renewed, like you said earlier. Financially, it just made sense for Southern Miss. COVID was a beast to a lot of schools. A lot of schools lost money. We're saving money now because of travel and things like that. But you're right. I mean, especially baseball coming in the Sun Belt Conference, and baseball is huge. I mean, what can you say about Sun Belt baseball? I mean, like, to me, it's parallel to that 3-letter SEC. I don't like to talk about them or give them praise, but SBC and SEC are right there in baseball, in my opinion. Lane, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I was ecstatic to hear it. It's been a long time coming. To be honest, man, nobody really. It's hard to get excited for, Middle Tennessee State to come to town. You know what I'm saying? Like we had some fun rivalries originally in Conference USA, and then all our rivals bolted almost. Memphis left, Tulane left. Which, by the way, we beat Tulane earlier this year, and you would have thought. I mean, we were throwing a party here in Hattiesburg as we finally beat them again. That's the first time we beat them since they've left the conference in football, that is. And so just a lot of, Cincinnati was in our conference at one point. That burned me up watching them light it up in football. We used to beat these dudes, and now here they are. We saw the benefit a lot of these teams. UCF was in our conference back in the day. We saw the benefit a lot of teams got from leaving our conference. And there we were still just spinning our wheels, playing subpar, games every Saturday. And we were really, really fired up at the thought of going to the Sun Belt. We're a football and baseball school. You wouldn't know football right now, but, we're trying to work back to what we used to be. But baseball school, we are definitely a baseball school, which you guys know that. We've been rivals, I feel like, forever with y'all. In football school, too, we have been in the past. And it just makes sense, man. To me, the Sun Belt, not knocking basketball, but to me, the Sun Belt's a football and baseball conference. So
it's really established as to become that. Baseball, we got lucky in many ways. And of course, we always had a history with South Alabama, obviously you guys know South Al being a natural rival of yours.
We kind of hate them.
Not
well, well, it's funny because, adding Coastal back in 2016, the day after they had won the national championship, adding Georgia Southern, adding Texas State, who was once in the Southland Conference, especially. So baseball, and then now we're adding Southern Miss and ODU, especially. I know you had some really tough matchups against ODU in Conference USA, but we're glad you brought it to us instead. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. I wanted to ask each of you, you two doing a fan podcast like we do at Rage and Review, that means you guys are diehard Golden Eagle fans. Talk a little bit about your fandom. How did you become Southern Miss fans? What was it about the school that attracted you? Did you go to school there? Are you from Hattiesburg? Talk a little bit about your fandom.
Go ahead, Chuck. Go first.
Right, well, I'm from the big city of Purvis, Mississippi, which is about 10 miles south of Hattiesburg. So I went to Southern Miss, got an undergrad in psychology, a master's in social work, bleed black and gold. Some of my best memories are at Southern Miss. It was an easy choice, Lane?
Yeah, my dad he's a Southern Miss alum. My dad went to Southern Miss. I grew up in Laurel. It's about 30 minutes away from campus. My dad took me to Southern Miss's homecoming game when I was in the 4th grade, and I loved it. And then the next year, I loved it so much he bought season tickets the next year, and we had season tickets every year. I started going to baseball games. Was a diehard fan. I was a football player in high school. I wasn't quite big enough to play at the college level, but I did get the opportunity to be an equipment manager at Southern Miss, and I was an equipment manager throughout my time there. That would have been 2011 all the way through 2013. Oh, boy, I'm trying to remember this. It would have been something like that. So, anyway, I was there.
He's great at math.
Yeah. My first year there, we won the conference and had – we had Larry Fedora. Actually, no, my first year there was Fedora's first year. And I was there through Fedora's entire tenure. That my second to last year there was when we won a conference championship. We did all that. And then my last year there was Ellis Johnson's one year.
Don't say his name. Why would you say his name?
I know.
Ooh.
So, I went to school there, went back and got my undergrad from there. So I've paid a lot of money to Southern Miss.
So one thing I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm sure the answer is yes. In fact, I know the answer is yes. Do you guys struggle with, and I'm going to back up a second, your fan engagement and the buy-in from the city of Hattiesburg is unbelievable. And it's something that I'm so jealous of, and I get pissed off when our fans don't show up to our games. And I'm like, if they can do it in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, why can't they do it here? But I know you guys face the same struggles as we do with the 2 SEC schools in your neck of the woods. We have one. And we've got the fans that will take baby pictures of their newborn in purple and puke, but then claim to be UL fans. And I'm sure you guys have that same problem. But what do you guys do? Like, I'm trying to understand what you guys do differently that gets the community involved with the program versus our casual fans that sometimes just don't show up for the games.
I'll say, I think it starts at the top. We just announced our 11th president, Dr. Joe Paul, who bleeds black and gold. Like you said earlier, he's canceling classes for the students to be able to come to the game or get prepared for the game. Education is important, and he says that, but so is engagement, and then Jeremy McClain, who's just a phenomenal athletic director, and his supporting staff. And then our coaches, man, are in the community. Scott Berry, if he sees you out in a restaurant, he'll stop and talk to you. Will Hall's the same way. I mean, these guys don't act like they're too good to sit down and have a meal with you or have a beer. Or like, these are good people that want to support Southern Miss, and I think that's part of it. I don't think none of us are where we want to be at Southern Miss either, but we're on the way. I really believe that.
There's still a lot of State and Ole Miss shirts that make their way in the stadium, and I don't understand it.
Dude, I got to tell you, I went to a baseball game there a couple of years ago. I've been several times, but it was a midweek series, and I show up and they have some guy with a Southern Miss shirt on and an LSU cap, and I'm like, bruh,
Yeah.
That was probably
I saw it in the regional. They were doing that in the regional. Like,
what are you doing, bruh? Like, no.
That's a big
when
no
you ask
for us.
when you ask a person who's like, now I'm not trying to, like, I've got a lot of friends who are fans of those other ones, but I mean, they know how I feel, so it is what it is. A lot of them will say, like, I went to Southern Miss, so I support them, but I grew up a fan of this school, and I don't really understand it. I don't get it. I think, you mentioned you guys have the same problem with it. I will mention this. There was a beautiful meshing of Southern Miss and Lafayette fans around the regional. I don't know if y'all remember that, but when we were hosting LSU, y'all's fan boards were all about Southern Miss, and we, in turn, shoot, man, I was watching y'all like, beat the Aggies, man, let's go. I was cheering for y'all. It was pretty cool. It was all over y'all's mutual hate of LSU, but we'll take it anyway. You can cheer for us because you hate the other team too. That's fine.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but we run into that same problem too. I think something that helps our fan base is we've got a lot of people who went to Southern Miss who still live close enough to Hattiesburg to come to games.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a pretty cool thing there too. There's a lot of, like, the Gulf Coast has a lot of Southern Miss people. The Hattiesburg area, Hattiesburg's a pretty decent sized city, and there's a lot of little outskirts from Hattiesburg, and most people that live in Hattiesburg went to Southern Miss. So the football attendance isn't where we want it to be right now. It actually came out after the first game of the season. Our head coach said he was disappointed in the crowd, like, and how many people showed up. That was met with some scrupiny, but he did say it.
Yeah.
And he
was
said
right.
what we were all thinking, the people that were there. But baseball, for whatever reason, well, I'll say everyone loves Scott Berry. Everyone's all about Scott Berry, and he's earned that. He's a great coach and very personable guy. So I think our fan base, we pack out the Pete a lot faster than we pack out the Rock right now. Mm-hmm. Now, back it up to like early 2000s, the Rock was packed. We went through that skid where we had some bad losing seasons, and we're still recovering from that a little bit. So,
it's funny because I grew up in New Orleans. So Southern Miss, especially when Tulane was in Conference USA, Southern Miss was the game circled on the Tulane calendar every year, especially when the Golden Eagles will go to the Superdome and play. And I just remember, and unfortunately as a Cajuns fan, it's kind of like the opposite It's like a 180. So like recently we've experienced a lot of success. We've been in the top 25. We were kind of what Southern Miss was in the late 90s, right?
Right.
And it's a reversed a little bit because I know you guys are kind of coming back on the up and up. Like you said, Lane, you had a few of those down years, but I remember the Jeff Bauer years, and I hated playing you guys because here we are trying to like survive as a football program. Here you are, you go play Nebraska, you go play Florida, you go beat Alabama, you go beat all these teams. And then here comes little old the Raging Cajuns, like, with a 1-8 record coming to Hattiesburg. And we were just hoping to win the coin toss. And it was unbelievable because what was impressive about it was how a mid-major university like Southern Miss could be that dominant in football, and especially when you're in a state with 2 SEC teams. You got LSU right down the road. That, Auburn in Alabama, I mean, those 2 schools. And, everybody talks about Brett Favre, and I'm sure you get tired of hearing it, right? I mean, I know Brett
especially right now.
Right.
I didn't get tired of hearing it till a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, right. But it's just, it gets, everybody knows, we say Southern Miss football, you think Brett Favre, but I think of Jeff Bauer. That was my childhood, and seeing some of the talent that came out of there. And so, I was kind of wondering, with that type of success that Southern Miss had in football during those years, and seeing what happened like during the Ellis Johnson years, and was Jay Hobson, I believe it was.
Yeah, Jay Hobson
Before Will.
Well, we had Ellis Johnson and Todd Monken, who's the OC at Georgia right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we had Jay Hobson, and then we had when Jay Hobson left, we had 3 different head coaches in 1 year, 2 years ago.
They were all interims. They were interims.
Yeah, they were interims. So Jay got fired after week 1 against South Alabama, and then they promoted Scotty. What was his last name? Scotty Walden. Scotty Walden. They promoted him, and then he was just the interim, and after a few weeks, he got hired at Austin Peay. So he left midseason, and then they promoted Tim Billings to the head coaching role. And so they went through 3 head coaches right before they hired Will Hall. I mean, there was a lot of turnover up at the top. We struggled a lot during that time. Bauer, for whatever reason, they got rid of Bauer, and Larry Fedora came in, and Fedora took the program to heights that it had not seen in a while. Like that year we won the conference championship. We knocked out Houston and kept them from a BCS game. I've got the ring somewhere in the box. But we knocked them out. And it was just a huge thing. We were number 19 in the country. It was big. It was like unheard of territory for us. And then, and then he leaves. We go 0-12, and then we hire Monken, and it's like a 2-year rebuild under Monken. And then he rebuilds it, and then he leaves. And then we bring in Hobson, and then we fired Hobson and went through multiple coaches, and now we're on to Will Hall. And we love Will Hall. I mean, Will Hall he's the man. We love him. And so hopefully – I think Southern tried to find a second Bauer. They tried to find a guy who never would leave, who would just be a Southern Miss guy and just stay there forever, and we might have that with Hall. I don't know. I don't mind being a stepping stone school. We were kind of a stepping stone school for Monken and for Fedora. I was fine with that as we won a lot of games as a stepping stone school. So, it just kind of it's had its ups and downs. We're happy with where we're at right now. Definitely could be better right now, but I think Hall's doing what he can with what he's got.
Yeah, he's done a fantastic job. I wanted to say I remember watching that Houston Southern Miss championship game in 2011. I believe Casey Keenum was the quarterback. And believe it or not, if I'm not mistaken, if Houston would have won that game, they were going to the Sugar Bowl. I think that's where they were going, and you guys punched them in the mouth. I think Kevin Sumlin was the coach, wasn't he?
He was. Kevin Sumlin was a coach. So
and
I was a ball boy on the sideline that night.
So I might have saw you on TV then, man.
Probably did. I was a little bit skinnier back then.
And then after that, I believe Larry Fedora, he took the job in North Carolina after that.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was alluding to. So you go from Bauer to Fedora, and then Ellis Johnson comes in, and all of it is just washed away in 1 year.
Yeah.
How? First of all, how did that happen? And the second question I have is, how have the fans, because Southern has a loyal fan base, how have the fans kind of rode that roller coaster ride over the last decade? Have people fallen off the bandwagon? Are they still riding tight? What's the vibe amongst the Southern Miss fan base right now, especially with Will Hall trying to kind of resurrect the program to what it was before?
Well, Chuck, let me go first on this one.
Go ahead,
Chuck.
man.
To answer the how did that happen? So I was there. Let me think of the best way to answer this without throwing people under the bus. I'm not a big hot take, like throw people under the bus guy. So what happened was there was a change in a lot of cultural stuff back then. And there was a change in like the weight program. There was a change in just a lot of stuff. The coaching staff came in. We had an OC hired, and before the season started, he had to leave for medical issues or something. And so someone else got promoted to OC, and he's a good coach. Like, I'm not knocking them for it, but there were just some unforeseen circumstances, and then the season started. So keep in mind, when we knocked off Houston that year, we had an NFL quarterback. We had Austin Davis at quarterback. Now, he played in the NFL several years, and was a coach for a while. He's the one that went to Auburn and left after a few weeks.
2 weeks.
It was kind of a crazy thing. But Austin Davis was our quarterback back when we were knocking people off like that. Jamie Collins was on that team. He's still playing in the league. So we had some really good players on that team. And then the next year, so week 1, all right, I'll put it this way. We had 3 different quarterbacks get hurt. So didn't have quarterbacks, and they weren't like just, oh, he's dinged up. It was like torn ACL, broke whatever, concussion, all that stuff, and so we were kind of in a quarterback bind there. We lost some games early. Against Nebraska, we played them close the first game of the season. Like, it didn't start out terrible, but we started losing games. We lost some players to injury, and before you know it, it just snowballed on you, and that's kind of what happened. You can't really place the blame on – I mean, a lot of people do, but you can't really place the blame on just coaches or just players. It was kind of just the whole program just took a nosedive after a few tough losses early. And the fan base, it took them a while to recover. I feel like we kind of recovered with Monken. I can remember being at some Louisiana Tech games where we knocked them out of the conference championship picture and stuff, and our fan base was going nuts. We were there. It was packed with Southern Miss. We were loud. We were getting all over them. We also don't like Louisiana Tech either. So that's in there with South.
We share that.
What a coincidence.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy.
So, but yeah, so we had some stuff like that happen. We've had some sparks of life. And then, as good as our fan base is at times, when you play in a conference that was subpar with bringing in good opponents, which Conference USA, it got to the point, Conference USA, our opponents weren't bringing out the crowd. I guess that's the best way to put it. We weren't going to compete with the other teams that were in driving distance. Nobody's going to choose to come see us play a team that no one cares about. And instead of driving over to Baton Rouge or driving up to Starkville or Oxford for a game, and so that we kind of ran into that. Hopefully Sunbelt fixes it. I think it will, especially if we can turn around and have some more success. I think it's on the up, and I think the Sunbelt move was a big part of that. So Chuck might have a different opinion there. Go ahead, Chuck.
I always say the reason we went 0-12 was because we hired an SEC coach. Have you ever noticed the SEC doesn't even do that? LSU goes and gets Brian Kelly from Notre Dame. They go get Kevin Sumlin from Houston. They don't even hire their own SEC. So I'm not just hating on SEC, but Lane's right. It was a perfect storm. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to bash people.
Bash away, man. We do
it's
it.
Still a sensitive subject.
It is. We're still healing.
If it's an SEC school, bash all you want. Away. So before I get to the next question, going back to Louisiana Tech hate and SEC hate, look, if you guys want to piss off a Louisiana Tech or LSU or SEC fan, call us Louisiana. If you want to piss us off, call us Lafayette. I'll just leave it at that. So before we turn it over to the game next week and where you guys stand in the belt and where we stand in the belt and talk about more current items, I want to give you guys a chance to ask us about our program, because of course you guys are our guests and we're asking you all these questions, but you guys are new as well to the Sun Belt. So I figured you might have something that you wanted to ask us about being in the Sun Belt or our program at all. Just open it up to you guys.
Yeah, if you don't mind talking baseball for just a second, somebody asked me the other day and I didn't know the answer. Where do they do the baseball championship or the conference tournament? Where is that held?
So the Sun Belt recently signed, I don't know if it's a 5-year agreement or so. It's going to be in Montgomery, Alabama. It was originally, it used to be at different stadiums or different sites. But the Sun Belt, I think it was between Pensacola and Montgomery. And I think Pensacola had, they've got the Blue Wahoos playing there. And I think there was a schedule conflict. So they decided to go with Montgomery. So it's more of a central location. So they decided to just kind of stick with that. Now, after 5 years, I don't know where they're going to go after that, but right now it's in Montgomery. So it's a driving distance. I'm sure from Hattiesburg, it's about what, a 2.5 hour drive.
Probably
like
about that. Probably
yeah.
2-3 hours.
So no, I mean, that's one thing I'll say, like, for you guys being in the Sun Belt, like you talked about driving distance, you're 3.5 hours away from us. You're what, about another 3 or 4 hours away from Troy. You're maybe an hour and a half away from Mobile.
Right.
I mean, you're about 5 or 6 hours from Jonesboro. It's fantastic. I mean, it's really, I think Southern Miss of all teams when it comes to geography hit the jackpot, especially in the Sun Belt Western Division.
Mhm.
And I was going to say it helps with recruiting as well for every sport. That includes baseball too.
Absolutely.
But the short answer is Montgomery. Yeah.
So what are y'all looking forward to most about y'all are coming to the game, right? Thursday? Did I hear that right?
We have a few fans going. Unfortunately, Nick and I won't be able to make it.
Your boy Nick lives in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
So, that ain't just a drive down, right?
Yeah. And Jerry's got a 9-month-old to watch here with
nice.
a wife. So if it were Saturday, possibly. Midweek games are tough on the road.
They are.
And it's kind of a shame. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I wanted this game to be on a weekend because I know it would have drawn a bigger crowd. It seems kind of quick, but I think it's one of those things where I guess we're just more thankful we get to play you now and we get to call each other conference mates. So yeah.
Well, if Southern Miss, if everything works out, we live in a Walgreens world. What is Southern Miss going to have to do to win against y'all on Thursday night?
Pray for a miracle.
Okay.
Jerry,
we walked into that, didn't we, Chuck?
Yeah.
All right.
No, look, and we'll get into detail, I'm sure, Jerry and I, in a second more. But big picture, what I think you guys are going to have to do is have good quarterback play, because I think we're matched up well both defensively. I think both of our defenses are elite, not just in the G5, but I think in all of FBS football. It'll be which team can move the ball downfield, and again, we'll talk about it in a little bit. I think you guys may have an issue at quarterback with a turnover issue. And I think if our defense, our cornerbacks are as aggressive as they typically are every game, it might be a long night for you guys. But if he's able to correct that, then I think I think it'll be close. So Jerry, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think one thing that the Golden Eagles have going for them is your defense is on fire right now. But on the other hand, so is ours. Right. So I think this is a game of field position. Special teams, I think, is going to play a big role. Frank Gore Jr. has been pretty much, he's been the locomotive of your offense. He's been the engine of your offense. He's going to have a good game. And also, too, for us, and this happened in Monroe. I mean, you want to talk about forgetting a memory, us losing to ULM a few weeks ago, we had some bad turnovers in ULM territory, or in our own territory, which gave ULM the ball inside the red zone. Cannot do that on Thursday night against Southern Miss. Cannot do that, especially being on the road. So really a lot of it is, if you force us to make mistakes offensively, if your defense is able to keep us off the field, and if Frank Gore Jr. has a good game, and if your quarterback play is good, because look, I watched your highlights against Tulane, and one thing I noticed that was very unusual for Southern's offense is you threw the ball very, very well that night. It was one of those games where you're looking, and I'm sure you guys were looking, going, "Wait a minute, where has this been?" Right?
Right.
Because you rely a lot on the run game too. I think that is going to be a factor this Thursday night if you can throw on us. But really, it's kind of like, Nick, I don't know about you, but I kind of think like it's like the Marshall game when we played Marshall a few weeks ago. It's really going to be about field position and who can play the better defense. That's going to be the big key. And really, that's why I think this game is so evenly matched. We're so much alike. So also, too, you're going to need the home crowd to get behind you. I mean, if Southern Miss is letting out of school or not having school that day, the students show up and the fans are excited, the Rock's going to have to be literally rocking to throw our game off. That's another. The crowd plays a role in that as well.
Right.
Yeah, Chuck. So I want to ask you, I want to kind of turn it back on you. You guys, again, we have 2 elite defenses in FBS. What concerns you on defense going into the game, if anything? I mean, you might say there's nothing that concerns me. We're going to absolutely shut you guys down. But is there any defensive, I guess, lapses that you're scared of happening? Because when I look at it, I know you guys have some really good defensive backs. Malik Shorts, I mean, 34 solo tackles this season. You've got good linebackers, Latham and Gill, 25 sacks on the season. We've only got 19. So is there anything on defense, looking at maybe our quarterback's performance last week, that really concerns you going into the game?
Yeah, so I don't know a whole lot about your quarterback. But I will say that I guess and Lane, correct me if I'm wrong, what you think. I think our biggest weakness on defense, and I don't even think it's that big of a weakness because I think they just released today, we're like number 43 in the top 50 defenses. So our defense is really good this year. But I think if we had to pick a weak spot, maybe the secondary. Would you agree or disagree on that, Lane?
Yeah, looking at it, when you look at the games that we played, right, the biggest plays other teams have come by throwing the football. We hadn't really had, knock on wood,
we pretty much stopped the run.
We hadn't really had a running back just go off on us this year. We just hadn't. Our defensive line is our strength of our defense. That's the biggest strength, is the D line. Now, what's helped us, now that's not saying our secondary is bad, but it's just saying the D line is the strength. What has helped us is we've had a really good pass rush. You mentioned the sacks there. We've had several guys get in there and have a lot of sacks. Our big sack guy is Dom Keywan, number 7. So if y'all watching, I'm assuming you'll be watching the game. Number 7, Keywan, for us, he's kind of our pass rush specialist. He has 7 sacks this year. And he usually gets them in the biggest moment. I mean, he's usually at least rushing the quarterback, putting pressure on him, forcing a rush throw, or getting a sack in a huge moment. I can think of multiple times where it was a big, like, 3rd down and he got a sack, and so he seems to show up in the big key moment. We have a corner that, Eric Scott is a guy that when the game's on the line, it's like a cheat code for him, and he's really good. But literally, he plays pretty good the whole game, and then all of a sudden it's the biggest play of the game and he picks it off. I don't know, the ball kind of finds him in the biggest moment. He's done good so far. But again, the biggest plays we've had against us have come in the passing game. Look back last week, just a week ago, we pretty much had Texas State dead to rights the whole night on defense. Like, they couldn't move the ball at all. We were just all over them. And we get down, and the problem was we couldn't move the ball at all either. So we were kind of, I guess that's my biggest fear, more so than that, defense, is our offense making the defense stay on the field forever, but we couldn't move the ball either. So it was just a defensive slugfest, I guess. And, we get down there and I can't remember if we turned it over on downs or threw a pick. We did something. Somebody fumbled, something happened. We gave them the ball with like 5 minutes left, or it was less than 5. It was probably 3 minutes left to go in the game. It's killing me not having my stats pulled up right in front of me. I've got them on my phone. But I'm used to recording on my phone and having a computer with all the stats just right there. But I'm doing my best here. So, but anyway, we give them the football. The game is on the line. Our defense has been lights out all night, and they drop back and they throw. It's like third and forever, and they throw a prayer up, and their kid, it was Shorts, who's probably our best defensive player. You mentioned him. He's the leader of our defense. He goes for the pick and missed it. They catch it for a touchdown. And, they took the lead right there at the end, and they're getting ready to storm the field and stuff. We've been just absolutely just sputtering on offense. Fans are calling for fans were mad at the quarterback. We got a freshman quarterback. I'm sure you know freshman. That. Well, we kind of do. We kind of have a rotating door right now, but the one that starts it is the freshman, and we think he's a special player.
Is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Zach Wilkie. He's had his big games and he's had his off nights, and people were all upset with his play and stuff in the game. Then all of a sudden he comes out and throws a touchdown pass with less than a minute on the clock, and everybody's like, Wilkie is a god, So it just –
I never doubted him for a minute.
Yeah, never doubted him for a minute, baby. That's what everybody, But
I told y'all.
But you mentioned the Tulane game, how good he looked there. Here's the biggest difference, okay? The Tulane game, Tulane had 0 sacks on the night. So when you got a freshman quarterback, that makes a big difference. So to me, I know you didn't ask about our offense, but our offensive success is, can we block your defensive pass rush and give our kid time to make plays? Mm-hmm. And on defense, it is, can we rush her? I think it comes down to rushing the quarterback on both ends. Can y'all put pressure on our freshman quarterback and force mistakes? Because he's made a few. You mentioned the turnovers. He's thrown 8 picks this year. So can you pressure him? And in turn, can we get pressure on your quarterback who just had a big week last week? So I think it kind of goes back and forth there.
Again, similarities, because we just had a 5th-year senior in Levi Lewis. I think his record was like 36-5, winning as quarterback in Louisiana history or UL history, and he's gone. So we've kind of gone through sort of a back and forth between Chandler Fields and Ben Wooldridge. Ben Wooldridge is I believe, Nick, he's a junior, right?
I believe he's a junior. Yeah,
junior. He's a transfer from Fresno State. Played backup last year, and Chandler, I believe, is a redshirt sophomore who was part of one of Billy Napier's recruiting classes, and he played behind Levi. And so Chandler was named the starter, and then Coach Dez would put Ben in every third drive. Well, I think the South Alabama game, the first drive, Chandler hurts his throwing shoulder, and Ben basically took over, and we lost that South Alabama game in the last second field goal, but you could see improvement with the way Ben played. And then we got a 10-day bye. We go to Marshall on the road as underdogs, and Ben Wooldridge just tears it up. I think what was interesting about our quarterback play, and to allude to your defensive scheme and your fast secondary, is that's going to be the key matchup, I think, in this game, is our passing game versus your secondary. We were always kind of a run-first team. We've always run a run-balanced attack. We've always had a reputation for having good running backs, a few of which are in the NFL right now over the last 5 years. So we always ran the ball first, and it always set up for the pass. Well, now we have 4 new starters on the offensive line. So now it's the opposite. Now we're playing a pass-balanced attack, and we're setting up for the run because we're trying to give experience to our offensive linemen and new running backs. We lost 2 to the portal last year to P5 schools. So I think that's going to be a great matchup, because if your defensive line is as good as you say they are, I mean, we really have no choice but to try to throw the ball. And that's going to, I look forward to that matchup, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what our offensive identity is. Our receivers are they're pretty well established. They're a veteran group. They really haven't come around until, I believe, the Marshall game, right, Nick? I mean, they really hadn't done much before then.
Yep. But what I will say, and that is unique about our wide receiver core, or not wide receiver, but just receiving in general for our team, is I took a look at some of the stats. You guys have 4 players that have 10 or more catches this season. We have 11 players with 10 or more catches this season.
Wow.
So we spread the ball around through the air a lot. So like Jerry was saying, I think if we're able to pass and open up the run and force you guys to respect the pass, then I think we'll have a little bit more success than we did earlier in the season. But if you guys are able to shut that down, then it'll be a rough go for us. But when you're throwing it to potentially 10, 11 guys on the field at any given time, we've got 3 tight ends that can all catch the ball. That's really hard to game plan against, right? So do you sell out to try to force us to throw, or do you try to cover those guys and allow us to run the ball? It's a chess match at that point.
Lane will tell you, I think that tight ends are the most underutilized player on the field.
Throw
Chuck
to the
is a
damn tight end.
I wish Josh were here right now.
Josh is listening. He's about to comment right now. It's coming.
Like there's tight end fans, and then there's Chuck. Chuck is a tight end fanatic. We do a section on our show where you pick a player of the game, and if a tight end had over 1 catch, Chuck is picking him for his player of the game every time.
I mean, we got some good tight ends. I'm just saying.
So, and you mentioned your offensive identity. Ours has been Frank Gore, and that name sounds familiar because his daddy is the Frank Gore.
Right.
So,
yeah, he was on my fantasy team. I'm old enough to have Frank Gore in my fantasy team. So there you go, man.
He was like an Iron Man. I had him on my team for I was in a dynasty league and had him on my team for like 10 years or something. It was nuts.
And he still put up stats after that long too, ironically.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. He was a stud. And so we got Frank Gore, obviously, and he'll play running back, and he plays quarterback some too now, and he can throw. It's called a super back. We do that where we stick our running back at quarterback, but he was a quarterback in high school, so he can throw enough to hurt you. Obviously, it's not quite like having your normal quarterback in there, but we will put him in there some as a super back, is what we call it.
I think half of Cajun Nation wanted to send the guy flowers after what he did against Louisiana Tech last year on their senior night. That we all turned into Southern Miss fans that night. It was a thing of beauty watching him just go up and down the field and just dominate that team. That had to have been the performance of the year in my book.
For sure.
Do that.
It was good.
So one question I want to ask you guys, kind of staying in line with offense, because you guys turned the page on that. I noticed one stat that stood out to me was red zone touchdowns. You guys are 7 for 20 in touchdowns in the red zone. So it's but when I look at the other stats, when I look at rushing yards gained, you guys have 1,055 on the season. You guys have 1,400 passing yards on the season, but you can't seem to punch it in. Is it? Do you think it's a play calling issue? Is it a personnel issue? Why do you think you guys struggle so much in the red zone this season?
Play calling.
You want to take it or you want me to?
Play calling all the way. I said play calling all the way. I mean, what was that? Was it the Liberty game? We were on the goal line and they ran it up the middle 3 times. Like same play 3 times, and it didn't work. But Lane is offensive coordinator by trade, so I'll let him answer.
There we go.
Question.
Put some pressure on me, Chuck. Thanks, buddy. I'll say this: we have really 2 big receivers in Caston and Brownlee, and then we got Gore. And the problem is when you get down there and you condense the field. Now it's tough to cover them because you got a running back and 2 big time receivers, and you do. And we had a kid had a breakout game the other night, Ty Mims, and we hope that's a common occurrence for him. But when you only have 3 of those really go-to guys and you get down there in the red zone, I'm not saying the other guys aren't good, but we hadn't utilized them like we've used the others, Gore and Brownlee and Caston. When you get down there in the red zone and all of a sudden you're in tight quarters, it gets a little bit tougher, to fit it to those guys. And, for whatever reason, we just hadn't. We've had – let's see, we've thrown interceptions down there. We fumbled down there. We tried to score down there and just been kept out for whatever reason. We've done different things down. We tried a lot of different stuff and it hadn't worked out at times down there. But now that you put the stat on it, that is a pretty bad stat for us there.
Yeah.
Looking back at the old games, I get it. I remember us being in the red zone multiple times and missing big opportunities. It's just for whatever reason, it's happened. So,
And real quick, who did Wilkie throw that game-winning touchdown to against? Who did we just play?
oh, it was Chandler Pittman.
Chandler Pittman, who's a running back, and he was at wide receiver slot. So I think they're trying some new things.
Well, Chandler, he's kind of a hybrid guy. He was a quarterback in high school. We played him at running back at one point. He's a receiver too. On the roster, I think he's listed as a receiver. He's played a little bit of everything. He's a Swiss Army knife kind of guy.
On the roster, he's
listed
as a running back. I just looked it
yeah.
up.
Oh, I got you. But he's been hurt though, so he's been out a pretty good bit. And he just came back a couple weeks ago, and he had a big play. But yeah.
I find that Will Hall has done a really good job. He's really experimented offensively. Like you talk about playing Frank Gore at quarterback, and he's kind of run different types of formations. He's not afraid to put in another quarterback if he has to.
Right.
What is the offensive identity as a whole, and what do you? I mean, look, Lane, you're an OC. I mean, what do you guys think about that? And does it help? Does it hurt? Because sometimes, obviously, as you know, I mean, if you start playing crazy personnel, it can backfire. But at the same time, it seems like Will Hall is sort of a mad scientist in his own way too, because what he does, it works.
Yeah. He's like the opposite mad scientist of Mike Leach. He's like the running version of Mike Leach. That's what he does. Like, he experiments with ways to run the ball. But look, so our offensive identity to me, obviously Gore is probably our biggest. He's our workhorse on offense. So we find ways to get him the football. So he is one. Jason Brownlee to me is probably the biggest big play guy we got. So Jacarius Caston is a receiver that's taking advantage of a lot of attention being on Brownlee. And he's kind of, in fantasy football where you draft the receiver, that's on the team that just got the stud because you assume he's about to get some matchup nightmares. That's what Caston's done. And so he's kind of come on as that guy too. And so basically our identity to this point has been this. We had quarterback competition to start the season, and a guy broke his arm in the quarterback competition against Tulane. So the freshman ended up with a little more pressure than what he probably anticipated when he got there. He's had bright spots, and he's had spots where he's looked like a freshman. So we think he'll be a special player one day. He's just had his moments. But right now, the identity has been get the ball in Gore's hands a lot. We got another running back, too. He's a transfer from Mississippi State, Janari Dean, number 28. He's more of a bruiser back, where Gore is more of a knife it in there and be slippery kind of back. So you got Gore and Janari Dean. Those are the two running backs. We try to slam it in there and run it with them a lot. Find ways to get Gore the football every chance we can. And then in the passing game, it's, take a big shot to Brownlee and then feed Caston. That's pretty much it. So they're going to take shots downfield to Brownlee because he's the biggest big play threat we got. He'll go up and go get it over people. He's shown he can do that in the past. And Jacarius Caston's more of the quick guy, put the ball in his hands and let him slip through and make a play. So basically it's been feed Gore as much as you can. And then in the pass game, try to find a matchup where Brownlee can get a one-on-one matchup and take it. If not that, feed it to Caston. That's kind of been our identity as an offense. And we've had a revolving door at quarterback. We put Gore back there at times, just a way to get him the ball more. We got Jake Lane, who's a backup quarterback, and he started out the season as Chuck, third, fourth on the depth chart, and he's kind of been sprung to action now, and he's a guy everybody loves him. He just comes in kind of like he did this against Arkansas State. We were struggling on offense, and we throw him in there, and he comes in there and he looks like Shane Falco versus Dallas. He just walks in, just kind of like the guy don't have gloves, he don't have sweatbands, his whole arms are just bare, and he's wearing number 24, and he comes out there behind the center, and it's just like, let's go, and just kind of rock and roll. And we scored 2 times in a row and beat Arkansas State with him in there. It was just
right.
Nuts, so.
I remember. So I turned that game on at that time because I was doing some scouting on Arkansas State, and it was like 19-7, and I was telling this to Kara Ritchie last week. She came as a guest speaker, on behalf of Arkansas State's football team, and basically we're in a group Twitter DM, and one of the Southern Miss fans said something like, "Oh, we're going to go 2-10 and Will Hall doesn't know what he's doing." And right when he says that, Jake Lang comes in, 2 straight touchdown drives, and you guys win the game. And it was back to what you said.
I knew it all along. I knew it. I told you.
Yeah.
But what was funny was when Jake Lang went in, I was so confused because he was number 24. So I'm like, is that a free safety that's going in? Is it the Frank Gore experiment with this guy? So he's a freshman quarterback for them?
No, he was there last year. He's a walk-on quarterback who was a scout team quarterback and ended up being a starter at one point in the season last year. And he rotates in some. He's a great kid from what I've been told in the interviews I've seen. He's just a good kid, a good teammate, and just shows up and does his job as scout team quarterback. Next thing you know, here he is. He's out there in the game on Saturday.
If he's not on the field, he's got a clipboard or iPad, and he's right there with the quarterbacks in Hall, and he's coaching them up like he wants.
He's
to
an
be
active kid. He's going to be one heck of a coach one day.
Yeah,
you need guys like that.
Absolutely.
You need guys like that. I have to ask. Since this is our first conference matchup officially against our 2 schools, what was your perception of Louisiana back in the day? Because like you said, we're kind of rivals in baseball. We've played each other in basketball every once in a while. We played each other in football quite often in the 80s and 90s. What was your perception of the Cajuns, and what do you guys think about being in the same conference as us?
Chuck, you go first.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if y'all saw this, but breaking news. Lane, did you see it? Who's doing the coin toss for the Southern Miss Raging Cajun football game?
Please tell me Brett Favre.
Is it Danny Lynch?
It's Danny Lynch.
Let's go.
You got to be kidding me.
It's not. I'm just kidding.
Oh, man.
Look, literally right here. Look at this. Here we go.
We love Danny Lynch at Hattiesburg. Let me tell y'all something. We back Danny Lynch to a T in Hattiesburg. He is our dude. And we know y'all hate him, but we love Danny Lynch in Hattiesburg. He is a celebrity to us. And mostly
he's something.
And we know it was not sportsmanship but we had a lot of fun at that game. I was there. Chuck was there. Yeah. We love Danny Lynch.
No, that was not a fun game. That game was horrible. What are you talking about? That wasn't fun.
I love the saying.
If it makes you feel any better, the guy who hit the walk-off, he's still playing baseball. He's in the minors right now for the Orioles.
Yeah.
It was a good player that did it.
I'm glad Josh isn't on the stream right now because he'd be going insane right now. In fact, he is going insane right now, just not in our conversation.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Go ahead, Chuck. It was what was our thoughts of Louisiana going into the Sun Belt and now just in general?
Yeah. So I have a soft spot for softball as well. So y'all had a phenomenal softball team back in the day. And so we come down there and watch a lot of games. Do y'all eat, sleep, and breathe crawfish? I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
I guess you could say that. Yeah,
you could say that. Yeah. No, so I'm excited about this. Getting to know you guys better as a school and as fans, and maybe we'll get some football stories. Maybe Danny Lynch will suit up and play tight end for us Saturday or Thursday.
He's going to walk into the end zone.
There's one targeting call for sure against Danny Lynch. So let him play. Bring him.
Danny.
So I'll say this. I speak for myself, I guess, and most Southern Miss fans, I think, would say the same thing. I respect Lafayette in sports.
Absolutely.
I do. I think Lafayette has a great baseball program. Honestly, I've looked at Lafayette for a long time as being Louisiana's version of Southern Miss. To be honest with you, great baseball program. You guys have hosted regionals. We've hosted regionals. You guys take a lot of pride in your baseball team. We take a lot of pride in our baseball team.
Blue collar.
You've had your years in football. What, y'all started the season with the longest winning streak in the country, huh? Something like that.
Yeah, we were at 15 games, and then of course Rice had to ruin it for us, and then we got into a
Yeah.
losing
Right.
streak. But
Yeah,
that's in the
Rice
past.
do it.
It's over.
Yeah, it's in the
Yeah,
past.
so-
We'll move on.
We
So I feel like we need to unpack that later off air.
yeah.
But, but yeah, so you know, you guys have had your years in football. You're consistently good in baseball. You've had your years in football. We've obviously had a heated rivalry. Danny kind of threw a whole bunch of gas on that fire that night. Which, for the record, it did look like your kid threw at our kid before. Now we can do this whatever.
Our kid
know if
couldn't
he
hit
did
the
or
side of a
didn't.
barn, bro.
No,
like
that wasn't on
he
purpose.
wasn't aiming. He couldn't.
That-
I mean, come
I'll
on,
say
man. He
this.
walked like 14 guys in a row. We're not going to get into this.
I was
now.
gonna say
I'll say this.
he's not here anymore. Just
Regardless-
to let you know, so you don't have
Yeah.
to worry about it.
Yeah, regardless, we backed Danny on it. We probably shouldn't have, but we did because it was just I don't know. But anyway, moving on. We'll get past that. But you guys, we respect the heck out of y'all in sports. At
do.
least I
We
do.
do.
I think you know, we obviously had a heated rivalry with Louisiana Tech. I view us as being us with you guys. I view it as being a really big rivalry in the Sun Belt. I think it will be. And that's more coming from a respect standpoint than anything else, because I view Louisiana Lafayette as kind of another version, Louisiana's version of Southern Miss. I do.
All right, look,
And-
Lane, you're making my ears bleed, bro. Just
I
go with
said Lafayette,
Louisiana.
I'm sorry.
Just nah, man. Just go with Louisiana. I will. I tell
He
you what,
warned you. He warned
we got
you.
it, man. If you can get this right, you can have as much crawfish as you want next time you guys play at home. I will cook a
Okay.
jambalaya. You name the meal, I got you, man.
Yeah.
Just Louisiana.
We got
Well,
this
in that
recorded.
case, yeah, it's Louisiana all
Look,
day.
As you can see, our fans are
bad.
losing their crap right now. So
I
we're
didn't
just,
know,
just
I didn't know
Louisiana.
I didn't know there was crawfish and stuff on the line here. My bad, man.
Come
I'll
on,
focus
Lane.
here. Let me get
Do you
dialed
not
back
see us
in.
big
So,
guys? We try.
As
I
I
can
said-
see us and Louisiana having a fantastic rivalry in the
Love it.
Sun Belt. I
There
can
you
see
go,
that
man.
happening.
Perfect.
I think it's just a close drive. I think it's two competitive teams. I think we're both good in the same sports. I see a lot of big time matchups happening between our two programs. So
You know, and that was the thing. Like before Southern Miss joined the Sun Belt, a lot of our fans would ask, why don't we play more often in football? I mean, it's do a bunch of home and homes every few years.
Right.
Even if it's not every year, maybe every 4 to 5 years, home and home, or maybe 2 home and homes. I always kind of wondered that, but now it's almost to the point where now we're in the same division. I mean, it's every year. So, I think Nick and I will agree, Lane, to your point. It's kind of the same thing with us. There's so many similarities between our programs, and there's a lot of pride in our programs. I know the Southern Miss fan base, you guys are very passionate about your team. You're kind of in the shadow of 2 SEC powerhouses, whereas we're in the shadow of one we call them to the school to the east of the basin, right? And so we kind of have to grind for everything that we earn. And I think to be honest with you, seeing what Southern Miss accomplished, like I said before, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, to get Nebraska to come to Hattiesburg, to get Illinois, a team that won the Big Ten the year before, to go to Hattiesburg, to get these big P5 schools to play you, that's respect. That's respect. And not only play you, but lose to you. Like, you beat a lot of those schools. And so that to see that model come to fruition, and to see the fact that you want to be in our conference. I mean, again, Nick, I mean, for how long did Cajun fans want to get the heck out of the Sun Belt? And now we're all like, we're happy where we are.
Well, I think the reason that we have so much in common is because I know, and I have some friends who are Southern Miss grads and fans, and they say the same thing we did in 2000. What was it, 11 or whenever it was, when the first wave of realignment went in. Middle Tennessee left us, Western Kentucky left us, the 2 FIUs left us, and we were left here going, we're inviting Georgia Southern. Like, that's who our competition's going to be. We felt left behind. And I know Big East, you guys, I feel like you were a good fit for the Big East, and then that all went to crap. And then you guys are still in CUSA, as I think it was a founding member. You've been there for so long. Yeah. And then you kind of feel the same way at the point where like North Texas is going to the AAC. Like
Yeah.
I feel like
Charlotte.
you guys and we were more a fit culture wise and success wise than a UNT and an FAU or whoever they invited. I don't know, but the point is, it feels good to be wanted, right? It feels good to we were happy to stay in the Sun Belt because we knew that adding you guys was going to make us better and make us better than the AAC. So that speaks to your program as a whole and just like Marshall, just the years of being winners and being a winning program. We're excited to have you, man. And once you get that name thing right, we'll be cool. But look, like I said, I think this is just going to be great for college football in general, because you can go and watch your SEC game or whatever, and it'll be a full stadium. But you can't tell me that those guys are 5-star players, are a more entertaining game than what we've been seeing all season. That 4 overtime, game against Liberty. I mean, you guys coming back and kicking Arkansas State's ass in the fourth quarter. That's fun to watch, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you guys bring.
We still don't know how we've won these past 2 games.
I hope you
Take it and run with it.
I hope
We
you're not
walked
saying
out
that
of the
next week.
stadium like, how did we just beat Arkansas State like that? Like, we walked out of the stadium like, did I just see that?
And I got, it's interesting because 10 years ago, let's be real, right? And I don't want to put words in your mouth when I say this, but when you look at where Conference USA was with Houston, Cincinnati, Tulsa, and now you look at where they've gone.
Choosing violets on the chat
Right.
room.
Sorry.
It's so interesting. It's interesting to us because, 10, 15 years ago, if somebody brought up to you, hey, do you want to go to the Sun Belt? You probably would have laughed at them like,
No.
what? Sun Belt?
Yeah.
And now, like, you want to be here. And it just goes to show you the perception of our conference and the fact that you want to be associated with us. And what's interesting is it's kind of, I don't know if you want to call it karma, but look at the way Conference USA's turned out. They just added Kennesaw State. Like,
Yeah.
who? And I know who they are,
Right.
but the baseball team, but really?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that's how you're going to try to survive? So I will say this, I'm sure you're happy that you're not not in Conference USA anymore.
Yeah. We are.
Wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I think the Sun Belt. Yeah, I mean, if you had asked me years ago, hey, you have the chance to go to the Sun Belt, I would honestly, and this is going to sound bad, I would have been like, why would we do that? That's going down. But now, like, and I think you can attribute it to the Sun Belt teams doing what they've done over the years. Like, you've got Coastal Carolina. They won a College World Series. That's a big deal for baseball. You look at you guys, you've hosted baseball regionals. You look at Coastal Carolina and what they did in football. You look at South Alabama, year in and year out, they're good at baseball, and I feel like they're on the rise in football. So you look at a lot of these schools, and heck, you guys had the longest winning streak in the country at one point in football. Like the Sun Belt has done this really, and I think Sun Belt leadership has been good. I think the Sun Belt's made great moves and added programs that were on the rise, and the Sun Belt was able to see that before it happened. And I think the Sun Belt's pretty much made a name for itself and made it better than a lot of other conferences. And I could see us passing AAC in a heartbeat. I hope we do. I'm mad at the AAC still. So,
Not really.
We're thankful. We're thankful now.
Well, at first we were angry, but then now we look at who they added and we're like, no, we're fine. Go.
Right.
You know?
Please.
Because really what the Sun Belt did, and credit to Carl Benson, the former commissioner, and now Keith Gill, is he went after tradition. He didn't go after markets, right? Hattiesburg, Lafayette, Boone, North Carolina, Conway, South Carolina. We're not Dallas. We're not Houston. We're not Phoenix. We're not Miami. We're not Charlotte.
Right.
But what we do have is tradition, and we have a loyal fan base. You go look at a Rice game, no offense to any of those schools, but you look at a Rice game, you look at the attendance at a Charlotte game, you look at the attendance of an FAU game, there's nothing there. Even Tulane, up until this year, until they got into the top 25, really didn't draw. And I think that's one thing that the Sun Belt has done is instead of going after these, it's almost like there's a running joke within the Sun Belt fan bases is basically if you have a college in a city that has international flights, the AAC is going to invite you. But overall, I mean, who really produces the better product?
Right.
I mean, would you rather watch UTEP play, or I'm sorry, would you rather watch North Texas play Charlotte, or would you rather watch maybe Southern Miss versus App State? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the model the Sun Belt went after.
Too, and I think thankfully there's kind of been a culture shift too. Like you look at College Game Day is going to be at Jackson State University Saturday in Jackson, Mississippi.
Saw that.
Yeah, they're starting to realize that that non-SEC schools have talent, they have position players, and they have fans, and they have all this tradition. So I think it's kind of been a culture shift too, and I think I can't think of a single bad SBC school right now. Like I honestly can't. Like I think we're all building a program or rebuilding a program, but
COVID
I think
Carolina is a fraud, but we'll leave it at that.
See, they're new to us, so we're learning.
Oh,
don't
you'll
hate
learn
them yet.
fast. Don't worry.
Yeah.
After you hear our fan base talk about them, you'll learn.
Okay.
You talk about still being sour about certain games. We're still sour. They canceled on us in that 2020 championship game after our team had already traveled and flown to South Carolina. By the way, we were at the
See,
hotel.
I had no idea about any of this.
Yeah.
When they told us,
You'll learn. We'll talk about it enough. You'll hear.
Yeah, we'll talk about it enough. It's kind of a running joke, but no, to your point, we do have a lot of proud tradition that's been fairly new. And, one thing that you'll notice once you start playing these teams is you'll find some natural rivalries being built up. You already said you hate South Alabama. You've already said we've become a rival in many ways. Look out for ULM, Arkansas State, Troy, right? Because I know Southern Miss has always played those teams non-conference, but now you're playing against those teams for something, right? You're playing against us for like this Thursday night game. You're playing for something. It's not just pride, but a chance, that's a Sun Belt game. So it's, I know back in the day, Tulane was the Louisiana school or Louisiana Tech, but I guess you're going to have to settle for us now, right?
Yeah. La Tech is so mad we joined the SBC also because they left and come to Conference USA. And during the baseball tournament, they were just like, I can't believe y'all are going to the Sun Belt. I cannot believe y'all are doing that.
So let's just take a second to recognize Jerry's video of their athletic director a couple years ago getting on a Zoom call saying, people like Lafayette, this is why we hate why people call us that, by the way. People like Lafayette should pay a premium to come to Conference USA. Wow. We would never step down and go to the Sun Belt. Yeah, that guy's like a janitor at Vandy now. So congratulations on that, bro.
I heard that quote. Yeah, I heard that like back when the realignment stuff was happening. I think you posted it. So I'm pretty sure I follow you guys on Twitter now. So
definitely
I followed y'all back during when y'all said the first positive thing about us during the regional. I was like, hey, conference mates, let's go. And I followed you guys. So I think you posted something about it and I saw it.
Yeah.
So
we post it as much as possible to this day because it's ironic. The conversation on that was our athletic director had stated, because this was right in the heart of the COVID pandemic when everything was canceled. He basically said, let's find a way in the future for whether it more of a regional conference, whether it's Conference USA, the Sun Belt, combining some of these conferences to save money on travel costs. And so they bring it up to the Louisiana Tech athletic director, and he said, well, there has been no talks. And he said, if I were in Lafayette's position, I would try to find a way to move up to a level like Conference USA. And he said, what they need to understand is none of us are interested in joining the Sun Belt, but in order to be in Conference USA with us, you have to pay a premium. In less than 1 year later, 3 Conference USA schools, including you, left to go to the Sun Belt. And now Louisiana Tech, they burned so many bridges with those comments that, nobody in the Sun Belt wants them anymore.
And they'll be playing against Kennesaw State.
Right.
We did not share the same sentiment they did. We were like, please take us. Get us out of this mess we're in right now,
You
please.
can be our stepdad, whatever. Just let us in.
Yeah, like insult us, whatever. Just get us out of what we're in and get us in something better, and we will be fine. I will gladly take a weekend series versus Louisiana. I got you.
All right.
You're
I'm glad
getting it, bro.
we take a
You're
weekend
getting it.
series versus Louisiana over a weekend series in baseball over North Texas. You know, like
Yeah.
whatever,
Any day of the
whoever
week,
it
yeah.
is over
Yeah.
UTEP. You know,
We're
so
we're very
it's
excited about the
it's going to be
baseball
fun.
series.
So you mentioned the big markets. A lot of people go after those big markets, and that's something I've heard a lot. You know, through all the conference realignment, and it always bothered me because I always felt like, yeah, you can get the big market and try to chase money there, but really the culture and the tradition and just the overall atmosphere is way better at some of these other schools. Like, I feel like Hattiesburg has a pretty good atmosphere, especially in baseball season right now because of our recent success. And football, when we start winning again and get it going, that's going to be an awesome atmosphere too. It's going to be good Thursday too. But you know, we've seen what it can be. I think Chuck and I have, and we're not quite back to that yet. But I feel like Hattiesburg has a great atmosphere for college sports. And I feel like Lafayette has a great atmosphere for college sports. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Nick's
Chuck,
looking at me like
we're gonna get him on the Louisiana thing before it's all said and done, man. I'm telling you,
I'll
crawfish
work on
gumbo.
Actually,
No, I'm talking about your
he's talking
town.
about the city.
I didn't
He's
call
talking
your
about the
city.
town.
I said I think
Yeah.
the town
I'm just
of
messing with you,
Lafayette
Bray. I'm just
has an
messing with you, man.
atmosphere
Don't mess
that
this up
is
for us,
good
Lane.
for the University of Louisiana. There you go.
I like
I'm
that.
just
No,
messing with you.
crawfish list. So, but yeah, I feel like. Can you tell us a little bit about like the town of Lafayette? Kind of like if we come to a game there, what do we need to do? Where do we need to go eat? What do we need to be looking forward to? Like what?
Yeah.
What can we expect when we come to Lafayette to see a game with you guys?
Yeah, so Lafayette is real. We call it the hub city because you've got a few interstate systems that run through it between I-10, I-49, then you've got Highway 90 to the south. It's like right in the heart of South Central Louisiana. We're right in the middle of what is called the region of Acadiana, which is the land of the Acadians. Basically, we're right in the heart of Cajun country. So you're going to get the Cajun culture firsthand the second you arrive in the town. As far as stuff to do, I mean, it's kind of like a big city, but it's all with the small town mentality or small town feel. Small town vibe. There's a lot of stuff to do around here that, if you have a wife and kid, your wife and kids, and you want to bring the family to the park or you want to go to a festival, there's always a festival going on. You can go find certain music scenes at night, go get some good live music, maybe some good Zydeco music. There's places to eat galore, especially in the springtime. Lane, you were alluding to baseball season. You're going to find some good places to get some good solid boiled crawfish. I mean, after that's actually something my family and I like to do after some of the UL baseball games. We'll go get some boiled crawfish somewhere close by. And it's funny because on our news stations, you know how they show like the tickers of the weather and stuff. Well, in Lafayette, on a few of our news stations, they'll show the tickers of the prices of crawfish around town. Who's got the best prices of crawfish?
I love
that.
that.
That's one thing that we have is, I mean, anytime you want Cajun food, there's a lot of good local spots to get some good solid plate lunches, some good solid Cajun food, kind of like you guys have with those fish camps. I know in Mississippi you're known for those delicious. I love fried catfish, so I mean Mississippi's got a lot of those fish camps. It's very similar to here. And you've got some small towns around the Lafayette area that also have that. So yeah, we pride ourselves on having a good time. Cajun people, we'll take the shirt off our back for you, but don't cross us, right? It's one of those things.
To say that.
Just don't cross us. Like for example, calling us Lafayette, man. We might be giving you that dead crawfish, man. It might be with the least amount of meat on it, you know.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, and I was going to say
the limp tail ones.
Yeah, the one
exactly.
with the peel. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, because I have a pretty unique perspective that I lived my entire life in Lafayette. Now I'm in Houston, Texas. But look, it's the culture. I mean, you can say there's culture in New Orleans, yes, but number two would be us. As far as in the South, the culture is amazing. The food, people from New Orleans take bus tours to Lafayette to eat our food. That's how good it is.
Wow.
So I would say when you come, go on like a 2-week alcohol free zone because your liver will get pickled when you're in Lafayette. And you also probably gain 15 pounds if you spend a couple days there. I'll go back to, we used to have a professional hockey team back years and years ago. We'd draw like 13,000 fans a game. It was absolutely insane. But most of those minor league hockey players ended up marrying a Cajun woman and living in Lafayette. So it's a place to love. They're still there. Just again, prepare your liver and your stomach because it's going to be a fun time for you when you come visit.
And one other thing too, I wanted, again, I'm from New Orleans originally, but I got family from around here. My last name is Abear. So of course I'm, Cajun as well, but New Orleans and Lafayette, people like to kind of lump them together. They're actually culturally pretty different. New Orleans is more Creole based. It's more of a European culture or more of a French European culture. Here it's strictly like Cajun, Canadian, culture where the food's a little bit different. We always joke in Acadiana, you do not put tomatoes in gumbo. That's one thing we do not do. Whereas in New Orleans, the Creole base, you put tomatoes in gumbo and you put other things in gumbo that you don't. So the certain recipes of food, they're similar, but they're different at the same time. So, I just want to let you guys know, like, if you come to Lafayette, don't expect the New Orleans
style
tourist feel, the vibe. It's a different vibe between the two cities, but either way, you're going to have a good time. Either way.
Good deal.
Can't wait.
Good deal.
But I tell you, now that we know, if we feed you guys crawfish, you got to show us around at some good fish camps down in Mississippi.
Oh, 100%.
There's some good ones. Hey, I've had my share down there.
Purvis is like the capital of.
We are.
Where is
Chuck
that?
Lives by catfish camps.
I do. So Purvis is literally about 10, 15 miles south of Hattiesburg.
Okay.
So it's about a 15-minute drive maybe. But LT's Fish House in Purvis, if you're ever in this area, try it. Absolutely. Tell them Chuck sent you. They'll hook you up.
See, you're a regular down there.
I am. Well, I am. And Keg and Barrel in Hattiesburg too. If you ever come to Hattiesburg, go to Keg and Barrel downtown. Best place in Hattiesburg, hands down.
Does Hattiesburg have? I know it's more of a college town in many ways, but I also know that it's a pretty good sized town outside of the school. What is as far as not just the campus life, but the nightlife, the scene in Hattiesburg from a cultural standpoint? What is it? What's it like?
So Keg and Barrel are two Purvis Bulldogs, or Purvis Tornadoes, man. The nightlife, there's Brewski's. It's probably the best bar / place for live music, or Keg and Barrel does a lot of live music.
You're going to be around a lot of college kids if you go to Brewski's. So
Brewski's is the college place.
I learned that.
Where the college kids go, yeah.
So other than that,
I've been there a couple times, but I always felt like the old guy. So I don't.
You are the old guy. You are the old guy.
But yeah,
our age, we go to Keg and Barrel. That's the place, in my opinion. And there's a lot of other good places too. Pier 98 down 98, Highway 98. Ed's Burger Joint is owned by Robert St. John, who y'all may know, who's a New Orleans chef. He owns
he owns a lot of restaurants.
He has Ed's, and he has Tabella and Crescent City Grill. That's a great place to eat. Mahogany Bar. Yeah, he owns all those.
My personal favorite, Sully's Steakhouse.
Sully's is bomb.
It's a good one. It's where I go anytime I get to select a restaurant. Which, if you're married, that happens every once in a while. My birthday, it's nice.
I believe. Funny you mentioned that, Lane. I think we went. So the last time the Cajuns played Southern Miss was in 2008, and I believe that's where we went to eat after the game.
Okay.
And it was delicious. But yeah. So would you guys say? And I know I might get a little bias here when I ask you this, or from you, but would you say it's a better college town than Oxford and Starkville?
Oh, 100%. Like it's even USA Today says that. Not even just that.
I'll put it this way. It's a lot more laid back than Oxford, because I've been to Oxford several times. And I mean, there's a lot to do in Oxford, and there's a whole lot more nightlife in Oxford. I mean, they're one of the top party schools in the country for a reason. And Oxford's a fun place to go hang out. Like my wife and I, we went up there for the baseball regional. We enjoyed it. We went around the square and shopped and stuff. Oxford's a pretty fun little college town. Starkville to me is so spread out. It's kind of hard to like. Hattiesburg's pretty much. There's one. I mean, there's obviously you've got to turn off the road to go places, but there's one main street that basically takes you through most of Hattiesburg, through right down the pipe through Hattiesburg, and it's. I'll put it this way. It's big enough that it's a college town with a lot of people, and it feels small enough that you don't feel like you're going all over the place to get from one place.
Not a Houston. Yeah.
Right. I will say I saw Jimmy Buffett perform there one time a couple years ago.
He went to Southern Miss.
Yeah. It was pretty fun. I got to meet him. Cool guy.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic.
He hadn't done any felonies, so that's a graduate we can talk about right now. He hadn't done any fraudulent stuff right now that we know of.
Ray Guy's got a clean record too. So
he does.
He does.
So guys, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us. And we're glad that we could give you guys some good content as well for Everyday
Absolutely.
Eagles. But let's get some final thoughts. Just kind of before we close it out, don't want to keep you too much longer, but what are your predictions for this game on Thursday night? What do you see happening between the Cajuns and the Golden Eagles? And look, free thoughts, free think. Go
first, Chuck.
Well, I'm gonna say I think it comes down to special teams. I think it's gonna be a field goal separates us. Especially the last two games. We won by 1 point, and then the last game we won by was it? I don't even remember. But I think either way, your side or our side, I think it's decided by a field goal. Truthfully, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think our defensive schemes and defensive games are too good for it to be a blowout.
I wouldn't be a good fan if I predicted us to not win. So I'm going to predict us to win, but I do think it's going to be the toughest. All right, so of the two Sunbelt teams we've beaten, this will be probably the toughest of the two. I would say you guys are probably better than the two we've beaten. Obviously, you blew out Arkansas State last week, and I would venture to say you're better than Texas State. So we got our work cut out for us for sure. I think it's going to come down to our offensive line and our defensive line. I think it comes down to those two. Can they protect Wilkie and let him get in a rhythm? Can they open up run lanes for Frank Gore to control the football game on the ground? And can our D-line get a good enough pass rush to force your quarterback to make some mistakes? And can they force you to be one-dimensional? So to me, that's the difference in the game, I think, is the line play on both sides. So I think it's going to be a tough game for us. I do. I think we'll find a way to win because we found a way to win the last few. I think it'll be an entertaining game to see for sure. We're proud of our team. We're proud of what they've done the past few weeks and the fight they've shown. We've got some fighters that wear black and gold for Southern Miss. We do. And, Will said it best the other day. He said, we're not a very pretty football team right now. That's what Will Hall said in a post-game interview. He was like, and I mean, this is from the man himself, Will Hall, and he said, look, we're not at a spot in our program where we're a pretty football team, but we are going to find a way to get culture wins where just our tough kids are going to be tough, hard-nosed kids that keep grinding and find a way to win some games. And so I think that's what happens. I think it's a tough game. I certainly hope our fan base shows up for a Thursday night ESPN game. It's a great opportunity for us to really, I guess, show that we're here. We're here in the Sun Belt. Right. We're here. Our fan support's there. I saw some pictures from opening weekend in the Sun Belt and saw like Marshall and App State and all them, and they were packed. And I was jealous. I'm going to call it what it is. I was genuinely jealous because our opening weekend crowd was not packed. And so I'm hoping these past two wins, I know it sparks some energy in our guys. I know it sparks some energy in our fan base. I just hope it shows up in the stands.
Okay.
On
hey, I want to change my answer if that's okay. Just for your is it your friend Josh who's not on tonight, right?
Oh, he's watching, but he's not on, but he's watching.
Josh, this is for you, man.
About to talk about a tight end.
We're going to throw a game-winning touchdown pass to our tight end. and he's going to win the game for us.
Oh, he'd be hurt. He'd be hurt by that.
Yeah, that would upset him actually.
Oh,
Chuck's our tight ends guy and our hot takes
Cavallo,
guy.
baby. Team Cavallo. All
So
the way.
every episode we do a pick 'em, and Chuck every single episode makes some ridiculous pick that's like.
How about I've been
he
right?
picks like some huge underdog, and you know
Like
what?
Tennessee
He's been right
beating
like
Alabama
4 times this year. Like he has been right multiple times this year, and I made fun of him on the show about it, and then he'll turn around and he'll be right. And so I don't know. Maybe it does come down to our tight end. I don't know,
Fingers
but
crossed.
so
Well, I think
yeah.
this matchup is definitely it's going to be a game of who can make the key play and who can make the least amount of mistakes. I know this sounds cliche, but with two good defenses, it's a razor thin margin of error.
I agree.
And I think that's what I expect. It's going to be tough for us being on the road. Granted, we did it at Marshall. At the same time, I know Will Hall and that team are high as can be right now with those 2 big wins. Especially, that's kind of something that's kind of that little spark that the program has needed over the last few years. And I think, you're over 500. You got a chance to really make a run in the conference. So I definitely understand the excitement, as you mentioned, but at the same time, we're kind of in that same boat as well. We still got a championship to defend, so we have to definitely go in and take care of business. And I'm an old school Cajun fan, and Nick is too. And I remember those beatdowns from Southern Miss. I remember them, man. And I know Nick's kind of Nick's kind of gasping.
Yo, no, not only do I remember him, bro. Like I was running the board at the radio station when I'm sitting in a 55-0 or whatever score back in 1999. Like I'm tired of losing to these guys. It's time to win.
That's for the old school fans. We want this one just as like redemption from what has happened 20-something years ago. We didn't forget, but luckily now we get the chance to redeem ourselves every year. Right. Every year. So, no, we're very excited about that. But, hey, before y'all go, tell us where, tell Cajun Nation, tell our fans where we can find you.
Yeah. So we're, Everyday Eagles podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple, all the streaming services. Check us out. We got a really cool interview with Brian Dozier, who won a World Series with the Nationals. We got some great stories from Colin Cargill and Samantha Papp and Lee Roberts and Tracy, a bunch of Southern Miss greats that we were able to get on the show. But check us out, Everyday Eagles on Facebook, Everyday Eagles podcast at gmail.com, I think, maybe. We're everywhere.
Didn't even mention the spooky spectacular we had last week. We did a Halloween special.
That's your baby. That's your baby.
Yeah, it was my baby. So, and I think your listeners, obviously, clearly, you're Cajun fans, right? So you're probably not that interested in our post game rundowns and pre-game rundowns for the next one. But there are some interesting interviews we've had with some guests that have been really cool and really fun, and I think that would be interesting. I think some of your fans would enjoy hearing some of that stuff,
right?
And so.
We got an episode coming out, I think. I'll have to get with Pay, but it may be next week. But Michael Gilbert was a baseball player, and they were doing some training on the football field, some kind of CrossFit style training, and they were carrying a big log, and he tripped and fell, and the log fell and crushed his skull. So he tells his story about how he survived that, and 2 years later stepped back out on the baseball field, and now he's a doctor. He's a doctor at the same hospital that saved his life now. So
that's
great story.
Yeah, everyone needs to hear that story. That's a good one. That's one I would highly recommend. It's not out yet. It's coming out soon, but that's a big one. We're kind of, I guess, do we call ourselves rookies still, Chuck?
We are definitely still rookies.
We started this back in like baseball. I say we. Chuck, they started this podcast a couple years ago, and then COVID hit, and there wasn't really any content, so it kind of fizzled a little bit. And Chuck and we were talking at a baseball game, and I just on a whim said, we should get this back up and talk about baseball. And, the next week he was like, but for real, though. And, we kind of went back and forth, and we got it back up around baseball season, so we're still trying to get it up.
We're having fun.
Yeah,
I love y'all setup though, for sure.
Yeah,
first class.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And this is what 4 or 5 years in the making. So don't. I'll just say this: keep grinding. Don't get discouraged. You obviously have the passion for USM sports. Just keep doing it. I mean, look, we started out, in front of a laptop with one microphone, and we've turned it into this. And this isn't. And we're still working on it. We're still trying to be as innovative as can be. Josh and Nick call me the boomer. Nick and Josh are more of the tech guys. I just
He's
talk.
such a boomer.
I really am. I'm not gonna lie.
That's us.
So,
That's us.
No, but in all seriousness, though, keep grinding because you guys definitely have a good thing going. You're very knowledgeable, and again, you're passionate. That's what matters. And look, our fans are going to listen to you. To be honest with you, we get very interested and intrigued with other schools in the conference and what the fan base is, what you're thinking. What's the hot topic within your school and your programs, and like for example, playing you on Thursday night. We want to hear what your fans think, right? So yeah, I mean, I definitely we will definitely be listening in, and look, we hope, and anytime we want to come join again and do another episode, maybe baseball season.
Love it. Yes, please.
We'll join.
Having a video stream is different.
It is. We had to put on clothes and
I
everything.
had to go put a shirt on and get my hair.
Y'all look
going
great.
I'm used to just laying around in whatever I got on, and I'm usually
How'd
snacking the whole episode. I was like, I can't be stuffing my face.
I got a Christmas tree cake here. I've been waiting to
camera,
eat,
yeah. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I text Chuck before it said, "Hey, buddy, we're on camera. Go put a shirt on."
Let me get dressed. Let me get dressed.
Yeah, turn off the Xbox. Make sure you make sure something's behind you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, guys, like I said, we've kept you here long enough.
Well, let me ask you a real quick question
go
before
ahead.
you interrupt. Where so if we could post, where does this show? Is this on Twitter? Is this YouTube? Is this
Yeah, so easiest way to find us is on YouTube at Rage and Review. We're on there. We'll send you a link after this, but it'll archive the whole video there, and then we'll send you guys the audio after.
okay? Awesome. We'd love to put it on our Facebook and let people check it out.
For sure,
Absolutely.
man. Yeah, we'll send you that link.
Awesome, man.
And please post away. The more you post, the more influence we all get all together. It's a team effort.
Absolutely.
Look, you guys wear black and gold, we wear red, but we're Sunbelt members, man. We got to stick together,
That's
right?
right.
We're family.
All about the belt, baby.
That's right. That's right. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure. And again, don't be strangers. We look forward. We'll probably do this during baseball season because we're both going to be probably fighting for a regional bid or something,
Yeah. Yeah, that game.
Well, hey,
that'll
we'll get Danny
fun.
to come on for y'all. We'll call him and say, hey, come on the show. Yeah.
We'll let
Perfect.
Josh and Danny go back and forth. We'll just,
Yeah.
sit back and
Hey,
watch.
bring him on.
There
We'll
you
sit
go.
back and watch
Yeah.
the fireworks while we
Right.
eat popcorn.
There
Well,
you
if
go.
you guys make it to Hattiesburg for any of the sporting events, man, hit
Ever.
us up. We'd
Holler
love
at
to go hang out with you guys, go get something to eat or something with y'all
We'll
before.
take you to
It'd be
keg.
fun.
Or fish, whatever you want.
Hey, done. And that goes for
That'd
you
be a
guys as
blast.
well.
Yeah.
That goes
Sounds
for you
perfect,
guys as
guys.
well when you come to Lafayette. Don't hesitate to call, all right?
Good deal.
Amen.
Thanks,
Well,
guys.
guys.
This was a blast.
Thank
Have
y'all.
a good night, y'all.
You too.
Thank you.
Well, guys, that was Everyday Eagles. Our friends Lane Brady and Chuck McCraney. Give them a listen. Give them a shout out. That was fun.
That was fun.
That
It's
was
always
fun.
good to hear other perspectives from other other conference mates, especially the ones that are just coming into the belt, because it's new to them, just like it's new to us. So it's great to hear their stories and how they feel about us. We'll
I
get
think-
them saying Louisiana before it's all over with. I'm committed to that.
Yeah, Lane's here laughing, but it's no, Lane. We're just giving you a hard time, buddy. But in all seriousness, look, again, 10, 15 years ago, if the thought of having Southern Miss in our conference seemed like an impossibility, and now that they're here, it's a team that I've always kind of wanted to model after before we reached that level of success, and it was a team that I figured we, financially and just logistically was a no-brainer to play. I know schedules are made 10, 15 years in advance, but now it's like, now that they're here, it's almost, it's a gimme, really. It just makes too much sense.
Yeah. And you're saying about we wanted to be like them. Hell, man, their fan base, I still want to be like them. Their support
Yeah.
from the community, I still want to be like them. Because like I said, when I've gone there for games, you see black and gold everywhere, and you see the Southern Miss pride at businesses. And when you go to Walmart, you see, I mean, I even saw some Alabama crap at some of there, but regardless, everything you see in Hattiesburg is in your face. They're Southern Miss, and we're sorely lacking that. And the hope for me is that having a rival so close to home with such great fan support, we can learn some things from them as they can learn from us. We're all learning. As you said, we're all Sun Belt Conference. So it's time for us to get off our butts and start trying to engage and be innovative in the way that we engage with fans, because I tell you, 15,000 against Arkansas State ain't going to cut it. We got to do better than that. As a fan base and as a school and as an administration and as a city of Lafayette, we have got to support our local school, period, end quote.
What's ironic is they talked about how Will Hall was embarrassed after that Liberty game. I believe the attendance was like 20-some thousand or 20,000. So that just goes to show you the standard that they have for fan support. When you're calling a crowd of 20,000 embarrassing, I mean, we had a crowd of 20,000 and we were satisfied with it.
Yep.
And not to say that's not good enough, because 20,000 should be a minimum at our games, but it just goes to show you the standard of fan support that they expect in Hattiesburg and at the Rock and within the Southern Miss fan base. And also too, when they were winning, I remember playing them back in the day, and they put 30,000 people in their stadium. I mean, they would do it every weekend. And so I get it. I understand where Will Hall's coming from, but I think once he really gets that program going and winning consistently, they'll be back. Their fan base is definitely there.
He will. And it's only better for the Sun Belt, and it's only better for us. So I welcome it. I'm excited about it, and super, super happy to have them as part of our conference and division.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, guess what? Now that they're part of our conference, let's talk about them a little bit. We discussed, a good portion of the conversation with Lane and Chuck about this game on Thursday. To be honest with you, I feel a little optimistic about this game, only because I find that Southern Miss, they're still climbing. I think there's a lot of room for growth for them, but I also think that I feel like we're just a little more experienced in certain positions. I think their front seven is solid, just like ours. I think we have the small advantage offensively. They're still kind of playing the musical chairs with the quarterback position. We have an established quarterback in Ben Wooldridge. They've got some really good receivers, but I think we're a little deeper in the receiving core. And on top of that, now where they have an advantage is the run game. But I also think that's a good matchup for our front seven. If we can contain Frank Gore Jr., I think that is a huge advantage for us. So this is a game about matchups. This is a game about field position. And this is a game about who can, make the least amount of mistakes. I mean, this is like I've said before, a game of razor thin margins.
Yeah. And look at what we did when we played against Marshall. And I feel like we're going to come out in the same game plan and understanding that we have to stop their run and allow them. I mean, again, beat us with your passing game, because they've really got two wide receivers that can make plays. But outside of that, it's not super impressive. If you look at Zach Wilkie, he's got 8 interceptions on the season. Again, as a team, they've thrown 11 interceptions total versus our 4. I think the biggest that's a big discrepancy. And as I mentioned earlier, they're 7 for 20 in the red zone in touchdowns. We're 12 for 20. So we've almost doubled them in the number of touchdowns we've scored in the red zone. So I think defensively, when you're looking at two really, really good defensive teams, who's going to bend first? And I feel like they're going to end up containing our running game. I feel like it'll be another Marshall where we're going to struggle to run the ball. But if Ben is Ben, and if he's the Ben we've seen these last 2 games where he can spread it out, again, they've got 4 players, Southern Miss does, 4 players with 10 or more catches this season. We've got 11. So we are clearly spreading the ball around. And I think if we continue to do that, and Ben has good vision and can get the ball to open receivers, I think that's a definite advantage for us going into the game. Now, if we start doing things like dropping passes, if Ben overshoots players, if we fumble the ball, because I'm not sure, I'm concerned about Ben turning it over, but I am a little bit concerned about our fumble problems. If we start doing that, it could go south on us very quickly. But I'm with you. I think we're very even, except for I think we've got a bit of an advantage on offense. But again, they've got a really good defense. In comparison, we're ranked 32 in FBS in total defense. They're ranked 36. So it'll be a tough going, but I think we have a little bit of an advantage offensively.
I think the big question for me this Thursday night is how far has the offensive line come in the last 3 games? And they've gotten better since South Alabama. The question is, it's one thing to get 206 rushing yards against Arkansas State, a defense that's really struggling. But at the same time, like, having a game like that gives you momentum and confidence. So I'm wondering, how do they take that rushing attack and bring it into a defense that's ranked 36 in the country? And will we see improvement? I don't know. I think one thing that was impressive last week was the way our running backs were finding holes that they haven't found all season long, the way that they were lowering their shoulders and getting those 3 or 4 extra yards, especially between Jacob Caboti and Terrence Williams. Both of them, that duo was unbelievable last week. I'm curious to see how they do this week against Southern Miss's defensive line and their second level. If they can get 4 to 5 yards a carry against Southern Miss's defense, I mean, we win the ball game. We win the game.
I think again, and they alluded to it. They've got a really good secondary, but they give up yards, and that's their main concern on defense, is that's a potential issue for them against a good passer like Ben. So I think if we have success passing the ball early and we force them to respect the pass, then I think naturally our run game will open. Again, like we said last week, our passing game is opening our run game rather than our run game opening our passing game. So I think if that's the case, if we have some success early passing the ball, then I think that takes pressure off our offensive line, because they will have to sit back and respect our passing game. And if that happens in the first, second quarter, I think I think that bodes well for our offensive line and our running game in general. But I think our key to winning this game is controlling the play clock, is forcing their defense to be on the field as much as we can. I think if we're able to do that, then again things will go our way. Do I think it'll be a blowout? Probably not. But do I think we could win by a score or 2? Yeah, I think that's not without outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I think it, 10 to 14 points if we do everything right. I could totally see that. At the same time, you're playing at their place. You're playing against a crowd that's going to be hyped up for this game. I mean, it's nationally televised. And of course, Southern Miss is known in the past to having those type of games at the Rock. And this is kind of like nostalgic for them, because it's their first, nationally televised game in a long time. And they're playing, they're playing well right now. I think right now, as far as what you talked about in the first 2 quarters, I think really the main thing is don't make mistakes. Even if you get 3 and outs, don't turn the ball over. Don't fumble. Last week we got off to a little bit of a rocky start because of that. That was where I think you let Arkansas State kind of stay in the game a little bit. And then we took some chances, Des calling that 4th down play where Jacob Bernard came out and scored on that, 45-yard slant from Ben. You had a few big defensive stops and we just ran away with it. You're not going to get away with that in Hattiesburg against the Southern Miss team. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this matchup. I want this game badly because, besides the past, look, you win this game, you're 5-3 and you're on a 3-game win streak, and you get a 9-day break before coming back against the first place team in Troy. So this game is very important, because if you're able to come in a 5-day turnaround and win on the road in conference against a team that's pretty hot right now, no telling we can make a run.
And look, I'm going to tell I know we have hardcore Cajun fans that listen to us, but I'm going to tell you, we need, if we happen to beat Southern Miss this week, We need every single person that we know to be in that stadium when we host Troy, because that is a season defining game that could, I mean, we're still in the hunt for the Western Division. Like, I get it. It's a long shot, but we win the next couple games and we're seriously, things could still go our way by the end of the season. So we need as much fan support as we can inside of Cajun Field. So bring your mom and them, bring your cousin, invite them. We need to get as many people out to Cajun Field, but one step at a time. We got to get through Southern Miss. That's going to be a challenge, but really looking forward to it. And again, so happy that it's a conference game and not an out of conference game this year.
Yeah, and also too, going into, if we take care of business on Thursday night, let's root hard for Arkansas State this weekend. They host South Alabama in Jonesboro. So the Sun Belt being the Sun Belt, there's a lot of crazy things that have happened. But if we win on Thursday, we're going to be Red Wolves fans, at least for this weekend.
And their quarterback's coming back, right?
Yeah.
I think he's coming back next week. So that's not a gimme game by any means this week for them.
That's right. That's right.
Man, I tell you what.
So, man, I tell you what. Speaking of which, we got ourselves a little win streak going. What we saw the other day at Cajun Field against Arkansas State was a small sample size of what this team could be. We threw the ball well, we ran the ball well, we blocked well, we covered well, we tackled well, and we also kicked the ball well. Not to mention, we coached well. Well enough to put us back up over 500 for the year so far with a record of 4-3. But the celebration of last Saturday will be a short one as the Cajuns head to Hattiesburg to face a familiar foe in Southern Miss in what I call this short segment, once again, rivalry renewed. Growing up as a kid in the 1990s and early 2000s, I always remembered Southern Miss football as a force of nature. We all know the story of what Brett Favre accomplished there, but it was also the Jeff Bauer years after that put Southern Miss football on the map. To me, they were the original Boise State, a mid-major powerhouse that accomplished so much on the football field with limited resources compared to the Alabamas, LSUs, and Florida States of the college football world, all three of which Southern Miss had beaten during that time. I remember the Golden Eagles being ranked in the top 25 consistently back then as they competed for Conference USA championships, also and Liberty Bowl appearances. And I remember the NFL talent that came out of there on a regular basis. But unfortunately, what I remember most were indeed the beatings the Cajuns endured at the hands of this program. You see, I also viewed Southern Miss as a measuring stick for our own program. If you look at enrollment, budgets, and overall logistics, Southern Miss and Louisiana are indeed very similar. But the direction of the football programs could not have been more opposite. Up until 1995, both programs competed against one another to some epic finishes. For example, most of you remember that 1989 game in Hattiesburg when Louisiana kicker Mike Lemoyne drilled a 50-yard game-winning field goal as time winded down to give the Cajuns a 24-21 road victory and sent Brett Favre and the Golden Eagles into the L column. I'm also sure a good number of you remember the low-scoring 13-7 win in Lafayette in 1993, led by Louisiana freshman quarterback Jake Delhomme, which started a run that year, which resulted in an 8-3 record and a share of the Big West Conference title. Those type of Cajun wins against Southern Miss showed everyone what it could be like over here. But that was only if we had taken those wins and used it to grow the program. But unfortunately, we all know what would happen next. The university administration would cut funding to athletics, and the rest is history. And while Southern Miss football continued to rise at that time, Louisiana football dropped and dropped hard. For example, in 1996, a week after the Cajuns had that historic win against Texas A&M, they traveled to Hattiesburg and played Southern Miss to a true letdown game to a tune of 52-27. 1998, in Nelson Stokely's last season as head football coach, the Cajuns lost to Southern Miss to a tune of 55-0. Follow that up with a 48-0 shellacking in 1999, and follow that up with another in 2001 to a score of 35-10. Oh, and another in 2003 to a score of 48-3. Now, there's 2 more meetings that I can mention, but I think you get the picture. Well, I guess I can only go that far, but I would get depressed, so I'm not. During those, I quote, dungeon years of UL football, I just remembered thinking, what if we could be like Southern Miss? What if we could be ranked in the top 25 and win conference championships? To me, those lopsided scores could not have been more indicative of what it looked like when you put your resources into a program compared to when you didn't put resources into a program like us. Anyway, now that I've brought back those somber memories into your minds, let's take a look at where we are today. After getting tired of these type of beatdowns, the Louisiana administration decided that it was time to make some smart coaching hires and put money into new facilities, because as much as it was that Southern Miss was just a good football program, it was also the fact that we were not doing enough to bridge the gap between the 2 programs. Now, look at the results since then. It's been over a decade's work of increased budgets and new buildings, but it's safe to say that we have caught up through our own share of success, such as winning seasons, conference championships, top 25 rankings, and bowl wins of our own. On the other hand, Southern Miss would recently see their own misfortunes with a few bad coaching hires, as well as conference realignment, as time and time again, bigger conferences would overlook them as their peers such as Cincinnati, Tulane, and Louisville moved on to greener pastures to places like the AAC and the ACC. But in spite of that, their football program still gleams with pride and grinds daily to get back to where they were just a decade ago. And finally, the Golden Eagles now have a place they can be proud to call home, the Sun Belt Conference. And how perfect for us to now play them on a regular basis. 2 programs who were once on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, now peers and looking to protect the trail of success that each of them have created. Man, I tell you what, it's exciting to see the Southern Miss Golden Eagles on the schedule once again. Unlike before, I don't look at them as a measuring stick, but now a conference rival aiming for the same goals as us. And on Thursday night, I don't expect the USM walk in the park win like we saw in the late 1990s and early 2000s. After all, this is a different Cajuns team going into Hattiesburg. A team no longer a win, a team going in to correct the mistakes of the past. And speaking of past, whether it was 1996, 1998, 1999, 2001, or 2003, if legend serves me correctly, Cajuns never forget. I know I haven't. See you Thursday. Go Cajuns.
And I tell you what.
Nicely done. Except for making me remember those bad times, man.
I'm sorry I traumatized all of you and our entire fan base on that, but I just want people to remember how far we've come, right?
We definitely have.
Now we don't have to worry about Thursday night being a 55-0 beatdown. Now we can maybe return the favor because we're good enough to do that, right?
I'd be good for that, man. That would be excellent.
It most likely won't happen, but look, even if it's a 5-point win, a 1-point win, I don't care. Just win, right?
W is a W, baby. Love it.
Guys, it has been a pleasure. We want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in and listening. We'll have this recorded probably tomorrow. You can check on Twitter, Facebook, all of the different platforms, Instagram. Be on the lookout. And thank you to Lane and Chuck from Everyday Eagles for joining us tonight. And Cajun Nation, big game on Thursday, 6:30, ESPN2, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Rivalry renewed. Louisiana versus Southern Miss. For Nick, for myself, Jerry, Cajun Nation, it's been a pleasure. Have a great night. And as always, go Cajuns.